All right, looks like we are live.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the September 2nd Town of Port Royal Council Workshop meeting. This is a virtual meeting through Zoom and Facebook. And our agenda, our first item on our agenda tonight is a presentation for stormwater drainage presentation. Mr. Neil Desai and Kate, how do you pronounce your last name?
Herrera.
Herrera, and Kate Herrera. Welcome and thank you for doing this presentation for us tonight.
Thank you for having us. Are you guys going to project it on the screen? The presentation?
I think Brooke does have it. Just might take her a second.
Okay, we'll give Brooke a second to get the presentation up. Can everybody see that?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. So again, my name is Katie Herrera. I am the Assistant Stormwater Manager for Beaufort County, and I'm joined today by Neil Desai, the Public Works Director for Beaufort County. Next slide. So we were approached to give a presentation, kind of a quick update on the Southern Low Country Design Manual and Ordinance. To give you a brief history, this got started back in 2018. This was a project that was originally initiated by Beaufort County with the support of 5 other municipalities, including the town of Port Royal. And essentially this started so we could have some consistency between the building community and our engineering groups with all the different municipalities. We wanted to have similar design standards. So from the creation of this Southern Low Country team, we created the technical subcommittee, which has met many times since the inception of this group. This was coordinated with the Center for Watershed Protection in conjunction with McCormick Taylor, one of their engineers, Katie Ellis. And what they did was take all of us and put the document together, as well as ordinance language, and then all of the supporting appendices. Next slide. To bring you into this year, 2020, the final draft version was made available for public comment on January 6th. Beaufort County hosted a public meeting for citizen input on January 28th. And then the town of Bluffton and the city of Hardyville also participated in hosting public meetings for citizen input. After the 6-week, I guess, public comment period closed, that brought us to the middle of February of this year. And then we took the next few weeks coordinating all of the public comments, going through the review and answering anything that we needed to. And at the end of March of this year, the final document was provided to all the participating municipalities. And just to let you know, that also includes City of Hardyville, City of Beaufort, Town of Port Royal, and then the Town of Bluffton, along with Jasper County and Beaufort County. Next slide. So what they did was, for these regional design standards, divided Jasper and Beaufort County into 3 watershed protection areas, and 1 and 2 are fairly similar, but the watersheds in area 2 all drain to the Savannah River, so they wanted to keep those different by the region, but the standards are still fairly similar to section 1. And then section 3, as you can see, is inclusive of the majority of Beaufort County and Jasper County, and certainly the town of Port Royal is fully incorporated in that section 3, the special bacteria and shellfish watershed protection areas. And in this area, we want our standards to be a lot more stringent, just because of the shellfish harvesting locations in that area. So,
Hey, can I ask you a question real quick?
sure.
So 2 drains to the Savannah River, you said, and obviously the Savannah River is our drinking water supply for the county. Was the Water Authority involved in this plan at all?
No, it was not.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Next slide. So overall, the Soloco design manual is fairly similar with Beaufort County's current BMP manual. Some things that we still have are our water quantity requirements for design storm events. Those are still the same. We do require quantity for the 2, 10, 25, 50, and 100-year storm events. Beaufort County is also requiring that the land disturbance threshold is still at 5,000 square feet or more. And then we still have the majority of the same BMPs for water quality and water quantity are included in the Soloco manual. Next slide. So some updates from the BMP manual are better site design. Better site design is inclusive of vegetated buffers. It also takes into consideration clearing and grading schedules. Better site design, it also includes tree conservation and land conservation. And then they're also very interested in the stormwater outfalls, not going into unmanaged jurisdictional wetlands, sole source aquifers, or other sensitive areas. The water quality requirements are changing just slightly. Currently, engineers are required to treat for bacteria, nitrogen, and phosphorus. That's going to change with Soloco. That's going to go to bacteria, nitrogen, and total suspended solids. And then we're modifying our escalating enforcement plan at the same time, just to make it, I guess, a little more stringent, you could say. But that's, somewhat separate from the manual itself. We're just incorporating the change with this. Next slide. So better site design for us, we realize, is going to be a little bit of a challenge, and we don't want to completely overwhelm the building and engineering community with implementing these standards. We also need to ensure that we're consistent with the community development codes, or the community development codes need to adopt the better site design standards. So this year, we're going to make this optional. We want people to become more familiar with the concept. We also want to be able to offer trainings for engineers, as well as our own staff, to get them familiar with better site design. And then we do want to offer incentives for those groups that do decide to adopt the principles of better site design before it becomes a requirement. So we are anticipating a January 1st, 2021 mandatory requirement with all of the permitted projects within Beaufort County. But we still do, again, want to keep those incentives the same for the groups. Next slide. Perfect. So where we're at now, we've kind of worked through all of our interdepartmental reviews. We're still working very closely with legal to make sure all of our adoption language is going to sync up. We will be presenting this at the Stormwater Utility Board meeting next week, all over the new standards and the ordinance. And then it goes to our Natural Resources Committee for approval in early October, with its first council reading late October, and the third and final council reading being mid-December. And again, we are planning for January 1st, 2021 implementation. Pending any, devastating storms, we are anticipating this schedule being on track. So with that, happy to answer any questions.
Council have any questions on the presentation?
Does this take into consideration anything from Paris Island? Is that considered in this?
It is not.
And Councilman Ashmore, also, because Paris Island is a barrier island and military installation. They have their own specific, I should say, DHEC and NPDES requirements because of the military installation designation. So for them, they're a little bit of a different animal. This particular Soloco manual refers basically to any new development within the unincorporated portions of Beaufort County, and then any municipality that wants to participate to adopt these ordinances.
Gotcha. Thank you for that, clearing that up for me.
Linda and Van, how well are you versed on where we are at this point, and what is your thoughts on where we going to be going from here?
I participated in a lot of the staff level discussions when they were reviewing this document. I think it's fair. I think it addresses a lot of the concerns that most of us have relative to stormwater standards for development, redevelopment. You know, obviously a concern of ours was what the impact on redevelopment would be. You know, where is the threshold for determining what is redevelopment? I think we've kind of addressed that, but I think the standards certainly for greenfield development are good. I'm not as technically versed as the other members of the committee were, but I'm pretty satisfied with where this stands. Obviously, there's a significant process we'll have to go through before it gets to us, which is outlined just a couple minutes ago. But you know, overall, I was pretty pleased with the document.
Very good. And our stormwater engineer, he's looked at this as well, and has he chimed in on this, or do we?
Yeah, he's reviewed sections from time to time and provided me with input, with you know, then fed back to the staff level members that were evaluating the language in the document.
Very good. Thank you.
Mayor, I would also add, you know, the document that was issued, you know, March 31st, that was kind of a template. You know, for the most part, Beaufort County has remained fairly true to that document. There's been a little bit of a deviation just for things that pertain particularly to the county. I'm sure for the town, there's some specific hydrology concerns, like the redevelopment and whatnot. So there's some opportunities for modification for y'all specific jurisdiction to look at that may pertain. And so, you know, every document between all the entities will not look the same, but I'd probably say, you know, 95% plus will be the same. The skeleton will be the same. The outline will be same. And it just really eliminates jurisdictional shopping for anybody trying to game the system, so to say, quote unquote.
Yeah, and I'm fairly certain the document also allows us to address specific areas of concern geographically in the town that we might want to, you know, have enhanced standards because of, you know, it's some sampling data that we may come across or concerns that we may have.
Good. Anything else from council?
I have nothing else, sir.
I have nothing.
I have nothing.
Well, thank you very much for doing this presentation for us and keeping us up to speed on what's happening. And we'll be following the process along as the county brings it to the end, and then we'll start our process.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. If at any time your staff needs any help or guidance or interpretation, we'll be happy to help.
Thank you, Neil.
Yep, thanks again.
Thank y'all.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody. So let me get that agenda in front of me again. Apologize. So the next thing is our council briefing. Van?
Yeah, give me 1 sec.
Sure.
All right.
Hey, Kevin. Sorry.
Just real quickly, I'll go through it. It's a few pages. Obviously, we just wrapped up that presentation on the potential new manual or standards for stormwater. But right now, just under stormwater, we've got one project that we may be undertaking. I know many of you are familiar with it. We've got an issue at one particular residence on 11th Street and exploring what could or could not be done there to alleviate that. I have Tony scoping that out, and we'll bring you some sort of estimate of what that potentially could be in terms of cost and scope. But as an aside to that, we are evaluating the tree canopy in the village to ascertain if we do have some issues with the number of trees, obviously, if you've been there, you know that it's a pretty significant canopy. However, we may have a number of oak trees and the root systems and what's occurring there. Jerry, I'll defer to you a little bit on this. But they could be causing some problems, particularly with sidewalks and maybe with each other. So, but I've got Michael Murphy in the neighborhood taking a look at that, because that has had some impact on the path of water in the neighborhood as those root systems have developed. So that's something that we're looking at right now.
I think that's good. I think Michael would give us a good, update on or kind of analysis of where we need to be. I've been by the property in question on 11th Street, and I think there's several things going on there, to be quite honest with you. And I told y'all that I would discuss it with you, and I'm happy to. The water flows across 11th Street there into this yard, and at the base of the fence, at the back of the sidewalk, is just a row of bricks that's pretty much damming the water up so it doesn't allow it to flow through freely like it's designed to flow. I think also there's so much compaction from just, parking on the street right there that water's not going to percolate there very well. The damming prevents the water from running down the sides of the house. I spoke with the neighbors right around in there, and they do say when it rains, it sits there, but only for an hour or two. Are there some issues there? Yes. I think there's some solutions that we all need to, consider before we need to look at the scope, but I think there's some other solutions that we can discuss as well.
Yeah, Jerry, I agree. I did the same thing. And, I think the brickwork was installed to prevent it from going on the property and flooding the front yard. And let's see what Tony comes back, because maybe a sidewalk elevation change or something and move the water into the road further down the road, or a full stormwater system. We'll just have to see what comes about, and we'll have to decide from there. But I agree with you.
And I have talked with her on the phone, and then I went by and spoke with someone else at the house, but they know that Port Royal is looking into it, and that we're going to figure out what we need to do.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And kind of staying in the same area, we've had some concerns about the Madrid pond, getting a proposal put together to look at aerators for it. It has developed somewhat of a smell, so we need to turn the water over there a little bit to change that up. They've also got a ground hornet issue in the bank of that pond, so we're going to have that looked at. I've got somebody coming on Monday to take a look at it. So there, I'll let you guys know about what sort of progress we make there. Kind of dovetailing into that as well, and this is something I talked to y'all a little bit about last week, was clearing that fence line adjacent to the Madrid pond, as well as 8th Street, really opening it up. I have had some talks with Gray Ghost. I think the easiest thing to do is to take the fence down so that we can properly clear that and bush hog it out. This also goes along with we own 4 of the 5 of the townhome lots at the rear of the second building of the shed property. And we really need to get that cleaned out as well. So I'll probably talk to the owner of the 5th lot, see if he's interested in partnering with us to clean that out and really open it up. So I have a company putting together a cost estimate for that at the moment also. So I'll keep you posted, and it's probably something I have to bring back to you anyway, depending on what the cost is. That kind of goes also to where we are. The next issue is the potential property evaluation that we're doing. Residential appraisers are very busy right now, obviously with rates the way they are. There's a lot of refinancing going on. So I struck out again, but I think I've got the line on a 4th potential appraiser. So hopefully they will be able to pull that off. CDBG, we did get an application submitted for revitalization of Paris Avenue. In your packets is that scope of work, which includes a lot of restriping, changing out the islands, recurbing those. And the lighting is a pretty big part of that program as well. So we're looking to get that done. So I'll keep you up to date as we find out more. And we haven't heard anything else on Narcissus other than what I told you guys last month, which is we've got kind of a tentative understanding with BJWSA and participation as we move that project forward. Shrimp facility, we did meet with the architects involved. If you recall, 6 or 7 months ago, we agreed to work out something with Gray Ghost to look at the potential layout and schematic of a mixed use building that would accommodate shrimp processing and a potential retail operation in the building. We've seen a couple of floor plans, one around 1,000 square feet for shrimp processing on that ground floor with, doors and configured in such a way to accommodate forklifts. The second one is it's a larger footprint. It's about 1,900 square feet. It also does the same. I think then we just kind of need to, once we get to a little bit better understanding of what we intend to do, I think we will know whether that is something that we are willing to pursue. We had submitted something to the state for consideration for improvements to the existing dock, as well as moving forward with the replacement shrimp dock. And that's still, with everything going with COVID, although I do understand that they still do have a surplus of funds that I think that came out in the newspaper the last 2 or 3 days. I think it's around $885 million. So there may be some ability to address that, although they may be putting that away for a rainy day, considering the impacts of COVID on the economy. So I'll keep you posted on that one. Gullah Monument, those of you that have been by, please go by. We did get the landscaping installed.
Good.
Unfortunately, the path might be a little too wide because people are convinced they can drive their golf carts down the gravel path to the monument, which is a little disappointing.
Right.
But we're going to get a sign installed that says no golf carts. So should be pretty straightforward. I've had some concerns about the landscape contract. We've had ongoing discussions with them. I keep bringing them specific items. They have changed out the person that manages our contract. He's very responsive. We've ordered the pieces to replace the uplighting. They did recently replace the plantings at the main entryway sign. So we're working with them on items that we find on an ongoing basis. And like I said, he has been responsive.
We did
Go
get one email from a citizen that was complimenting their work.
Yeah.
Had done very good. They were very impressed with something about cleaning sidewalks. I think it was specifically what was in the email. They did a really good job blowing off sidewalks and doing some other things. So they're starting to see some changes out in the community, and we appreciate all your hard work with that.
Yeah, that's good.
Redevelopment Commission. I think Bernadette is on here, and she can maybe address anything that I don't. But they have kind of rebranded or attempting to rebrand the Port Royal Pride program to make it a little bit more, I guess, notable to commercial businesses. So maybe that they will get a little bit more participation in this funding cycle. We'll get that up. I think they're working on a fillable format, which I think one of their members undertook, and we just got to get it posted. They're also thinking about different things that they might want to consider, how it might be worked into the comprehensive plan, maybe addressing some of the other commercial corridors and things that we can do to maybe improve what's there, or change out what's there, or improve the appearance of what's there. And they're also working on the change out of all the entryway signs. So they've got, they had a couple of renderings, and I think they found the one that they want and have made a motion to move it forward. Cypress Wetlands work is hopefully to begin soon. Obviously, we have to draw the water down, which is the first step. We were waiting for the ibis nests to be complete, if you will. I think when we were close to getting ready to start, we had 25 nests there. We certainly didn't want to disturb the birds, so that is something that will start probably in the next couple of weeks. Crew's ready to roll. Duck blinds, I know y'all got some calls about that one. The aerator is in. Seems to be doing what it's supposed to be. It passes the roll the window down test when you drive by. So it certainly does smell better than it did. So we're pleased with that. Traffic, Chief Beach and Tony and I met down at the PD to look at where we should probably locate this first prototype for the, what I guess you call an elevated speed bump that includes a pedestrian crossing. And we've agreed to locate it where that first sidewalk is, adjacent to near Parker's and Black Dog, where it's a good crossing. I want to make sure that the police officers are comfortable, and that was one that they would use, and the chief informed me that is. And I think this will be a good place for that to begin, and also allow us to take that the flattened one out of that area and get it out and give us a real real feel for that. I have told Jeff to go ahead and move forward with the installation of the four-way stop at 16th and Old Shell. And as I mentioned in the briefing, Tony suggested because of how long that run is, if we wanted to think about something at one of the Fort Frederick Circle, intersections with Old Shell, maybe we should do that. That would be a three-way stop. Might be, some people may question the legitimacy of it. However, I think the intent is to slow traffic. And if you'll notice in your packets, I did include all of the directed patrol information that the police department has undertaken this past month to give you an idea of where they are. I got one this afternoon. They did some more out on Old Shell. And Chief, I don't know if you're on with us. I know you're on Facebook. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, but I think our presence, if anything, is starting to slow traffic down. So tool study, just need to get that scheduled. I should have deleted the CDBG mention here because we covered it earlier. And then finally, one of the last items, well, here we go. Porter's Chapel met on site with the National Park Service. They are ready to put some staff in there, ready to provide signage, ready to provide, some rudimentary office equipment. Obviously, we want to dedicate that building and rename that building. We would hoped that we were going to be working with the USCB this semester on some of the displays. Obviously, with what's going on with their curriculum, Mary, you were there when we talked to the professor who was overseeing this particular class, and due to some issues, they had to move it to the spring. So I have to figure out the logistics of how do we get this building open and operational, because it really does need to be the meeting spot, if you will, for those folks that want to see or tour the adjacent reconstruction sites. I've copied y'all on some letters that were sent about the fence relocation specific to the Camp Saxon area off of at the rear of the installation adjacent to the Fort Frederick ruins. And I did get some feedback today from Joe Cunningham's office. That's something we're working on. And he also wanted to work on the fence relocation for the sidewalk. So we've got to figure out if we want to go ahead and dedicate the building and then work on some of the display work as it becomes available for those students through the coursework, or how you want to proceed. I think we can get it up and open and then address some of that other stuff as it moves along towards the spring. And to be quite honest with you, the spring really is January semester, so it's not that far off.
Van, are we still planning on relocating the pavilion?
Yeah, that's on the docket as well. When we've talked about it, at minimum, it has to be that old ramp has to be removed.
Right.
And then we've talked about how we would interface it, because there's the potential of, because of its location, really taking advantage of it as an outdoor classroom adjacent to the Porter's Chapel, so that if we they can go in Porter's Chapel, get some information, speak to one of the rangers, go outside, have some discussion, in the gazebo, because the reality is the Naval Heritage Park is part of what was the original Smith Plantation. So when they are even there, they're there. So at minimum, if we don't relocate it, it will be rehabbed. So it looks the way it's supposed to look, and it's actually safe.
More of
right now, I'd have real concerns about the ramp that's there.
Okay.
So,
Thanks, Darryl.
Shrimp docks, we did get 3 boats submitted for consideration for removal as part of that marine debris removal DNR kind of federal grant program. Obviously, the 2 that are sunken at opposite ends, plus the one that's adjacent, I think that's a Little Joe, that's tied up at the very end next to one of the ones that sunk. Those are the 3 that we're focused on. As you can see in the packet, there's an estimated cost of about $55,000 for their removal. So that's something we're hoping to get funds for. There will be a match required, but those are things we'd like to get taken care of. So hopefully that'll get done. Tag fee. Go ahead.
Hold on, Darryl, did you have something?
Yes, is that total removal, or is that going to become an artificial reef?
Total removal.
Okay.
That's barge over the side. Take out what we can.
And that's
Very good way of describing that, Darryl. I like that.
Yeah.
The other one is behind the Buccaneer. Is that the one you're speaking of?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. That was the first one to ever go down
Right,
that we know about.
right.
Yeah, there's been many.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to chime in.
I'm
So-
trying to be nice.
All right. Tag fee, that's something we haven't talked about for a while. That's kind of on the back burner. We are talking to the county about how they manage the tag fee now. I think, Mayor, you asked about the ordinance that was established or passed to establish this fee. And the language does speak to only funding for state and county roads with that collected tax fee for all residents, including those in the municipalities. We just want to see what the distribution is, what those dollars have been used for, because obviously we have state and county roads, one county road in the town of Port Royal, but the rest are either state or town owned. So,
Yeah, appreciate you sending me that legislation.
Yeah.
And I think.
and then as I mentioned earlier, we covered a little bit the Naval Hospital sidewalk and fence relocation. There's been some congressional interest recently in assisting us in pushing that forward. So they have in front of them the updated survey that shows where the fence will be relocated, some of the concerns we've had in the past, and how we'd like to see the Department of Navy work with us on that designated Camp Saxon area and maybe make it a little bit more accessible. And obviously, we'd love to get that fence relocated so we can build the sidewalk. I did notice last week or 2 weeks ago, they did have the fence down in a section, so they do it when they were working on some of the gate issues up near the gatehouse. So it is possible. And then finally, obviously we've had some vandalism recently that it has slowed down. We have had some conversations. I'm sure the chief is listening. With conversations with some folks in town, and that seems to have stopped or slowed down. We don't have anybody in custody or have not filed any charges against anybody in particular, but we have seen a downturn in the vandalism since our discussions.
Were we
That's what I've got.
recently doing repairs at Live Oak Park there? Due to
What's
the
that?
vandalism? Were we recently doing repairs at Live
Yes.
Oak Park due to the vandalism?
Yes, we were.
Okay.
And we did issue trespass notice to some of the port property because of some activities that were happening there. And just as an aside, that was kind of triggered. I saw some kids that were trying to pull on doors and get into the shed building. And it made me think I've signed our side of the shed closing documents. So hopefully the shed will be closed and sold before the end of next week.
Oh, good.
Excellent.
Very good.
Right.
Very good. Anybody have any questions about any of the items? Bernadette, I know you're on. Do you want to add anything to the redevelopment commission statement?
I think you folks covered it all. We're moving forward with the Port Royal Pride and trying to expand our view of what we're looking at to beyond Paris Avenue, since it is our gateway to the town of Port Royal, Rebo Road, Paris Island Gateway. A lot to look at.
Thank you. Thank you, Bernadette, for your work.
Thanks.
Van, do we need to have a conversation about the crosswalk on Waddell at Casablanca?
Yeah, we could talk about that a little bit. Obviously I made the request of the DOT to see if it was something they would consider, and you all saw the response. They sent it to the Department of Engineering, and they decided that it wasn't necessary or it couldn't be justified just cross-hatching where the sidewalk ends and then attaching to the one on the other side. So I think it was y'all suggesting maybe we reach out to the city and see if they're willing to work with us on extending that sidewalk to where we just have this gap right by where that wetland is, where we were able to secure funding to that point and maybe fill the gap to where it's up near where Hardee's is, across from CVS.
Yeah, I think that's one option. And the other one I was thinking, as I read through the response that you passed on to us, thank you, that maybe we take a different approach and we get Tony to file an encroachment permit to install a crosswalk. And let's get a denial on that if they go that way. Let's do it for us. If we have to fund it, it's just paint. let's see. what
Yeah,
it
and
is.
that's what I did. I mean, I even told them that, we'd be willing to fund it if we could get permission. So maybe we should go ahead and file the encroachment permit, see if we can get them to
Right.
let
So
us do it.
maybe it's a different group of people. Maybe local can handle that. It doesn't have to go to engineering as part of a construction project. And maybe there's another way to do that, but I still think we need to work with the city, get that other side completed, but still a crosswalk right there makes sense. Coming out of Casablanca, be easy to get across the street.
Yeah, even if you're able to build the sidewalk, you should have a crosswalk area to get folks out of Casablanca and onto that.
Regardless.
Darryl?
I
Yeah,
say
I mean-
you're correct. Regardless if the sidewalks there or not, we still need to have a crosswalk there because there's a lot of pedestrian traffic that crosses over there.
And I agree. And it's we got a very large park in there and we need to get this connectivity completed in there. So let's keep that going. Talk to Tony and see if he can go ahead and file an encroachment permit for us.
Okay.
In aspect of just installing a crosswalk. And we'll see what happens in that way and try to move it forward that way. Do we, council, do we need to have a conversation on collection? Or is everybody comfortable with what's going, I mean,
I like Van's latest email. I mean, he makes some good points, and I know we've all gotten phone calls this week.
You got to be reasonable. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I did. Jermaine and I met at town hall today to discuss it. Said, hey, I'd like to come by and talk about it. And I said, absolutely. And you could sense his frustration because I think what's happening is they're seeing a significant uptick in volume of household garbage for the obvious reason.
we're all home working.
We're all home.
Right.
And, yes, we've had growth, but he says, we get to the landfill now and we're in line. It used to be you'd be able to go dump a truck, come back. So yeah, they've got some scheduling challenges. And I said, put something together and let's figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with having to say that we have 2-day pickups. Certain areas of the
Yeah.
town is one, certain areas of town is another. If that can get us to an organized schedule, I think it's a great way to go. And I'm glad that he was willing to talk. And we'll reach out to the citizens that have been having some issues, and we'll update them on what a possible plan is. I think it's
I
gonna
think
be.
that's great. I think it's great.
Yeah, appreciate it. Appreciate you jumping on that so quickly. Also, it was something we needed to deal with. So,
People take garbage very seriously.
it's true.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, absolutely true.
Well, I got several calls myself, especially in the Casablanca area, and plus my own for the last 2 weeks has not been on schedule. So, today it was picked up. 10 minutes later, here comes the recycle bin. So
Well, that's good.
a real problem.
Anything else that we want to talk about or have any conversation with Ann about before we move to the next item?
I don't have anything, sir.
Very good. Well, the next item is council discussion, face mask ordinance. We're due to renew our ordinance or stop it next week at our meeting. Just to give some context, some background, Bluffton did theirs. Bluffton has gone through November, but added the option to stop it by a vote. So they've kind of done it that way. They added a clause that they could rescind it by vote as well as put a date of November. The county did theirs on Monday through the end of October to their last meeting, which would be about the 20 something, according to the calendar, or 28, somewhere later in the month. So those two have kind of gone all through September and almost through October. I did reach out to the city just to get a feel, and they hadn't had anything that they could share with me on what they're planning on doing other than extending it. So just wanted to give everybody that information. And what's everybody's thoughts? Do the way we're doing now, do any changes to it? We'd have to, obviously, that Brooke's got enough time if we want to, and Van to change anything, or just keep going to council meeting to council meeting.
Yeah, I don't think we need to change anything yet. I think some of the numbers have started coming down. The problem is that as they come down, people think that, oh, we're lax, and then next thing you know, you got a crowd of people, and then all of a sudden you got COVID started back up. I think we probably ought to try to keep them at least another 2 months like everybody else, and then we could change ours by vote if we need to. But I don't think we ought to lax this thing as much as I hate to wear it. I think it's important.
Very good.
I agree with Mary Beth, and I'm fine going meeting meeting to meeting, that would be fine with me.
Yeah,
Same
the
here.
fact, yeah, the fact that we put it to our meetings makes it a lot easier as well. So I'm good with that as well. I just wanted to make sure we had the opportunity to have the conversation about that so we can decide what to do. So we'll just take it up next week on the agenda. And the numbers are, Mary Beth, you're absolutely right. The numbers are coming down, but we're still, we're still in the double-digit positive rate. I just keep thinking about that number, wanting to see that way down in the single-digit rate before you do
Mayor,
it.
can you send us your graph, that you've been keeping up with at your convenience, please?
Absolutely. I will, I stopped sending it because the 2 times that I sent it to you, we immediately spiked afterwards and I felt like I was jinxing it. So I really didn't send it, but I will email that out either tonight or tomorrow morning to everybody, just to let
That's
everybody.
very helpful. And
Yeah,
I'm enjoying the one that the LOCOG has been sending out too.
Mhm.
That's been great information in there.
I mean,
Yeah, that is a good one.
it's up to council whether I could share it tonight on the screen. I can email it to you, whatever you want to do in that aspect.
Yes, whatever's convenient for you is fine. Just email it.
I will email it out. We did have a spike. We did have a spike this week, but it seems like we have a spike about every 7 days, but it was a much, much lower spike. It was, when you're looking at that spike of 45 versus when we were in the high hundreds, but we did have
Right.
this week. So I'll get that out to everybody, and Ben and Linda, I'll copy you as well so you can see what I've been tracking.
Great, thank you.
No problem at all. So our next item is the review of the agenda. Everybody should have that. We want to go ahead and bring it up. Do you want to put it on the screen so you can see it?
Let me bring it up on my computer.
Hey, yeah, Brooke, if you can bring that, just a popping agenda up there.
We've got 4 sets of minutes. While Brooke is getting it up, we've got 4 sets of minutes for our review and ready to make a motion on. There we go. Rob Wells. Rob, you're on tonight, aren't you?
No, he's actually, he'll be on for next week. We just invite him here tonight, just in case you guys had any questions. Either more about the DMO contract that we're considering next week. If there are any questions you may have had tonight, we figured we'd invite him tonight just in case.
But the presentation is going to be next week.
Yes.
Okay. I'll kind of hold my questions till after the presentation. Anybody else have any thoughts there?
And so next week we are, after the presentation, are we voting on next week?
Yeah, I think those are they're basically 2 separate things. He's making a presentation on some of how do I describe this? Anyway, you're taking a council action under the agreement of a destination marketing organization, formalizing the agreement or the relationship between the town and the Convention Visitors Bureau. The presentation is just something that they've been working on in a marketing plan that they wanted to present to council. So they're basically 2 separate things. One being the agreement or contract between the town and the DMO, or designating them as the DMO, and the second is just basically informational.
Van, did you share the cost?
No, that's driven by our collections. And I think and Rob can maybe address this a little bit more than I can, but yeah, I mean, the way the accommodation tax works is, you have 65%, 30%, and 5%. And so you have to designate X percent towards marketing to a DMO. And then there's 5% of what, it's been a long time since I broke this down. And then 30% there you have the discretion, and it's basically like hospitality tax. You can spend it on A, B, C, D, and E. And a lot of those it's tourism related funding basically. And that's why you'll see, landscaping or marketing, those sorts of things are always included in the expenditures that are approved in that sort of accommodation tax ledger expenditure world.
So
But what, and Rob can speak to this better than I can, but by having them as our DMO, it just allows us to leverage the dollars that we have maybe a little bit more effectively. They may have more buying capacity because we're representing other organizations. So when they go to market for whatever platform, whether it be online or print, or whatever method they use for marketing the area, it just maybe allows those dollars to go a little bit further for us. Because right now we don't have a truly cohesive marketing program for the town. You know, we do market across a lot of platforms, whether it be print, the billboards that Jerry loves, the online, some, the geocaching, or fencing or whatever they call it. Those are some of the things that we do now. But Rob and his organization will allow us to make more sensible investments in how we market the town.
So are you recommending that we do the entire percentage allowed for marketing?
Correct. And I think we're legally obligated. See, one of the issues that the town has always had is because we've only had 2 hotels in town, we really didn't even reach the threshold of having to designate or have a DMO or stand up an accommodation tax committee or commission. But because of the increase in short-term rentals, that's something that we're going to have to explore now, particularly if we ever, the hotels that have been proposed to us ever come to fruition. We obviously will have to do those things. But right now, we had one that was, basically got all through permitting in the Midtown area that hasn't happened. And then we've had some discussions in the last year or so about a potential hotel, but that's not happening right now either.
So is it the full percentage of the A-tax or just the?
No, it would be the percentage that's set aside for a DMO. And Rob, are you on? I don't know if
Yeah.
that's-
Can you hear me, Van?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
All right, good. I'm sorry. I'm trying to navigate this Zoom world here.
Don't ask me.
Mary Beth, you got anything you want to add to that?
I can probably help you out a little bit there, hon.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah, so Van's basically outlined what that percentage breakout, and it's based on the state accommodations tax. The agreement that's been presented outlines 3 areas basically of what we're looking to do. First, it'd be what the execution of that tourism promotion and marketing for the town would look like using those funds. And that's any funds established by the town, whether that be state accommodations, local accommodations, or hospitality tax, however y'all designate that. But the agreement itself is just to put those guidelines in place. And that's based on the assessment that, we want to make sure we're setting proper expectations of both us, the DMO, and the town, and what you guys are looking for. And then what we provide from a metrics and data and execution of those funds. And then, of course, being stewards of the public money. Even though they are generated typically by non-resident visitors to an area, they still fall into the public purview, and we want to make sure that we are good stewards of those monies and trusted partner. And that's what the agreement lays out. So we feel like the successful marketing of this region, really needs and depends on the town of Port Royal being a part of it. And we think it also eliminates those questions being raised, down the road of whether or not they participate. But everything Van has said in regards to the threshold, yes, that applies. And there's some I guess some state outlines on how that works. But I don't think that's covered in the agreement per se. I think the agreement is more for the formalization of the contract between the DMO or the designated DMO for the town and the town of Port Royal.
Yeah, Rob, that's what I saw. So Van, if you can share a little bit with us over the next week on, what percentages what percentages are going to be going to them, just so that we have a feel for that. We understand what we're applying that money towards. Because when I read it, I couldn't find how much of the percentage was going to be going to you, Rob. And thank you for that explanation, both of you, for this. And we look forward to be doing this. We do have one of the biggest draws when they start having graduations again in the county.
Yeah, and you're exactly right, Joe. And just to make a reference to that, we hadn't had military graduations, since March, and they've kind of cut those down. This past month, in July, short-term rental data has indicated that your occupancy in Port Royal has actually grown almost 19%, which talks about the impact of the leisure travel to northern Beaufort County that has taken place over the last 3 months. And I think that's important to recognize as the diversity of travelers coming to the area. You know, that's what the mission of the DMO is to set those up, but also give you ideas of where those revenues come in and how those metrics can be used and applied. Because listen, at the end of the day, tourism dollars help offset the local and our friends and neighbors' taxes that we all pay to our local municipalities and counties, and they help offset those taxes by lifting some of the burden off our citizens. So I think it's all very positive, but we got some work to do, and we look forward to discussing that at length if need be between now and the 9th. I answer any questions you guys have. If you want to reach out to me, that's fine as well.
Good. Anybody have any questions for Rob or Van on the subject?
No, sir.
Okay, we've got the 3 second readings. We've got the Hammock property. We've got the open space on Sundown Bend, and we have the third one, which is the sidewalks along the Bluff neighborhood. I do have a question, and I think I saw Tim. Yeah, I do see Mr. Rentz on here. I do have a question on Hammock. Is the closing of the property going to happen before next Wednesday?
I'm here in Tim's place this evening.
Oh, there where did Tim go?
Sorry.
Tim got a lot younger.
I'm double. I did. Yes, very quickly. And so we do have some updates there. We, as far as we understand, the big question here has been the deed restriction on this property. As far as we understand, that has now been submitted to the town for review. And we basically right now we're looking at the closing of that property being either the day after the rezoning next week or by next Friday at the latest. And then the deed restriction, as far as I understand, will be filed in advance of this to the Register of Deeds from the seller, but has been submitted to the town at this point for review, so that the property would be deed restricted by the time we actually close on it.
So we are still taking the leap of faith if we do a rezoning next Wednesday and the clothing, I can't say the word, has not happened. There's still the chance then we get into the same problem, which I thought was explained really well, that you were going to close on the property and then the money was going to sit in escrow till we do the rezoning. So if the clothing is happening after, then we need to look at moving this to October.
Okay, I may have misunderstood. Is the way I understand the deed restriction is that the property will still be deed restrict. I mean, it's been filed in advance. So essentially, the way the deed restriction is worded is that if it's not rezoned within 6 months, then basically nothing changes. But it would be effective. As far as I understand, that from the seller, the deed restriction has already actually been filed. So the property is currently deed restricted prior to our closing. And if that's not possible, then we could certainly advance the closing of the property prior to the town council meeting. The way we understood that was that essentially with the deed restriction in place, it allowed us the opportunity to have a different closing date, but that could change.
Sarah's on the phone.
Mayor,
Yes.
you hear me? Okay. Dr. Burris is on the phone line here with me. We're going to try to make certain that you can hear him. Dr. Burris, go ahead, test that.
Just for the purpose of everybody else, Dr. Burris is the landowner.
Is the seller. That's correct.
He is the seller and the current owner we're talking about. The request for the zoning is from the church, but he is the property owner.
Correct.
Okay, just want to clarify.
Okay, the attorney is waiting for council's endorsement of the deed restriction, and we figured that would happen today. If that happens today, the deed restriction will be recorded before next Wednesday, before next Wednesday's meeting, either this week or next Tuesday. So we're just waiting. We didn't want to record a deed restriction that wasn't approved by council. So, and the town manager. So we're on standby. We are ready to record it if we have the blessing of the council.
We have no authority to approve or disapprove this deed restriction. It is something that it'd be submitted to us as information only for our, when we do the reading. We have no authority to approve or disapprove it.
And I'll say the way,
Okay, well, we'll assume that it's adequate and we will record it prior to next week's meeting.
Kevin, did you have something?
I was just saying, the way I read it, tell me if I'm correct or not, is that we rezone it to T4 neighborhood, but the only thing you're allowed to do on the property is build the church. The only thing they get with us making the T4 is the one thing is the building a facility of 10,000 square feet or larger. So that's the way I read the deed restriction, is that it's rezoned to T4, but you can't do anything under T4 except for the church.
Correct. Dr. Burris, did you hear that statement?
Yeah, so that is correct.
Very good. But like I said, we have no authority to approve or disapprove this. It's just, this is something that is being worked out between a property owner and a buyer, and we're being notified of it.
Yeah, and I'm just saying, not approving the deed, but the deed is written exactly what we kind of wanted. I mean, that it based, like I said, it says it's going to be T4, but you can only build one thing under T4, and that's the 10,000 square foot church. So they've got it worded pretty much what we've asked for. So
okay, so that'll be.
We got the input of the town's attorney to give input to the language. So that has been reviewed by the town's attorney, working with my attorney, and they were in agreement. So we're ready to record.
Very good.
Okay.
We look forward to next week then. We understand where we are.
Yes, sir.
Council members have any question?
No, I know the church is ready to get started, and, I'm kind of excited for them.
Very good. All right, any discussion on the other two? There's the other two that I mentioned, and we have one more as well. Second readings?
No, none from me.
None for me.
Okay. So we'll have we have council actions next week. We've already talked about the one destination marketing organization and the dedication of the Cypress Wetlands Amphitheater.
And Bernadette's here to speak to that if you'd like.
Bernadette is?
Yes.
Bernadette, please. Bernadette, you still there? There she is.
I'm here, yes, yep. As you all know, that Pete Richards, who was the founding, one of the founding members of the Cypress Wetlands, passed away on February 28th of 2020. And the Friends of Port Royal Cypress Wetlands would like to have the Wetlands Trail dedicated to his memory and create a plaque to be put in the amphitheater.
Very good. Any questions from council for Bernadette? I think we're ready to go on that one.
Terrific.
Thank you.
We have our meeting tomorrow, and I'll be anxious to let them know that you are in support of that.
Very good. Anything else on the agenda? The next items are obviously the council comments and public comments. Any additions or deletions to next week's agenda?
I'll just say I'm looking at the proposed agenda and just see if we can get something on there about the mask ordinance that we will be discussing and voting on again to either extend or I just don't see it on. I just didn't see it on there. So
I thought I saw it.
No.
Well, I think that's what we wanted to hear your discussion tonight. And then based upon that, we will add it to the agenda.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you for letting us know.
Very good. Anything else? Anybody need any additions?
No, I do have just a point of discussion I wanted to bring up when the time is appropriate, Mayor.
Go ahead.
So I've gotten a couple of emails that I've heard from a few people, and I just want to talk a little bit about the Port Royal Beer Garden. And I will tell you, I personally have enjoyed the Port Royal Beer Garden, have been down there numerous times with my wife and my family. And I think it all started out with good intentions to help local business owners, during the COVID. And I think it continues to do that. I think some concerns that I'm hearing, and I'm just sharing this with everyone because this is what people are bringing to me, is they feel like that. I think there's supposedly a 2-day music event with camping being offered here in a couple of weeks. That 250 tickets were sold, but that really rules aren't really being applied down there. They don't feel like there's been any enforcement by the police department. The attendees are not adhering to social distancing or mask wearing, and they're just wandering around the village. A lot of people feel like since it's private property, they can do what they please, and maybe that is the case. I know some people have been frustrated with the noise that comes down out of there after hours. So I just wanted to bring it up, maybe as discussion to let folks know that I am hearing from some of our town residents in Port Royal that they're having some concerns about the beer garden.
Okay.
And I've had some of those same concerns, Jerry, and I'm glad you brought it up because I just think we need to really look at that and see what we can do to fix some of the issues.
I'm sure, Van, you'll pass on to Chief the concerns and what we've heard and let him monitor it. This weekend, from my understanding of what they do, it's the first weekend of the month is their bigger event. So that would be this weekend. So obviously we need to keep a close eye on what happens there this weekend.
And I will tell you, I've had discussions with them about it, and because of the cap issue, the 250, I think that number makes it difficult for them to break even. So I think they're revisiting that completely. As to the garden itself, I've been down there a couple of times. I have seen some of that. Some of the things that I think are disappointing is that we do have a lot of people that are visiting the garden, but they're not supporting the vendors that are there. They're bringing their own beverages, which really kind of defeats the entire purpose of what we were attempting to do, or what they were attempting to do, excuse me, or what we were supporting. And it's become something a little different than what was intended. That's disappointing. But yeah, I've heard the same complaints about noise. So we asked them to kind of reorient the stage so it doesn't impact some of the adjacent residents. But a lot of times when you're in the water, depending on which way the wind is blowing, is going to impact how much you hear. But some are louder than others, that's for sure.
What about the camping down there? They were saying.
Yeah, I caught wind of that. Some of this primitive camping. That is private property. We do have rules regarding RVs and whether they can be powered up or not. So those are things that we're going to have to talk about.
Well, maybe Chief can give us a little bit, have some sort of a briefing ready for next week on how this weekend went so that we understand to follow up with the discussion. Does that, Jerry, Mary Beth, you okay with that?
I'm good. Yeah.
I'm fine with that. Yeah, I just want to bring advice. I've enjoyed the beer garden. I'll tell you, I go down there with my wife and we have a good time. But I think it is just kind of it's gotten a little bigger than what its intended use was originally.
Yeah, I know people do enjoy it.
That's good. Let's just get an update, make sure that it went well over the weekend. Because like I said, this is, why I understand it is this is the big weekend.
Okay.
First weekend of the month. All right, we've got some important dates on the agenda. Wednesday, September 9th, obviously we have our public hearing and then the council meeting following that. Those are the only two items on tonight's agenda for important dates. Anything anybody wants to add to that? Holiday
That's right.
weekend this weekend. You know, it's a holiday weekend this weekend. That's an important date as far as I'm concerned.
Yep.
That's right. That's right.
Jerry, I think you were looking forward to that long weekend.
Yes, sir.
There's
Must
one
be nice.
other important date, which is on the same day, there's going to be a special meeting held, executive session at 5:45.
Very good. Executive session next week at 5:45. Thank you, Brooke.
And well, actually, I didn't know if you guys wanted to, I hate to do this, expand it or start it a little bit earlier at 5:30 based upon, the letter that was circulated. So, maybe we may want to add that.
Everybody good with 5:30?
Yes, sir.
I'm good.
Go ahead. Anybody have anything for the good of the business of the town right now on this workshop?
Nothing from me, sir.
Brooke,
Daryl, I just want to tell Daryl, boy, you're making me hungry with all those posts.
Daryl's been eating some very good and healthy food lately. We'll just
He
leave it
certainly
at
has.
that. We'll leave it.
Oh, you're making me look bad.
Anybody
Well, I'm
want?
working out too, so I work out every day, so.
Right. He's earning every one of those meals, and there's a good
I
thing about
bet.
that. That's good. Brooke, just to check real quickly, were there any comments that came in that need to be talked about tonight?
I did not receive any emails. Chief Beach did hear what was being said about the Port Royal Beer Garden, and he has it on his radar.
Very good.
Thank you.
Well, then if there's nothing else, we will adjourn for the evening, and thanks everybody for your participation.
All right, folks, see you all next week. Be safe.
See you.
All right,
Well,
have a
we'll
great
see you
weekend.
before then.
Be
All
safe.
right.
Have a good weekend.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.